Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your intuitive astrology forecast for the week of November 2nd to the 8th of 2025. Of course, in this video, I will intuitively tune into my own higher self to get the overall kind of energetic vibes of each major and minor aspect that will be occurring this week. And then, of course, at the end of the video, I'll tune in for an overall energy of the week as well. Now, this is not an all signs kind of a video or based on any kind of sun sign stuff. What I do here is mundane astrology. This is more of like how the energies are impacting us globally, whether that's politically, economically, or whatever on a larger scale, okay? A lot of that, if you're just focusing on your sun sign, you're really, or even just your big three, you're really just kind of missing the point. Not to be rude, but that's just how it is. You need to take into account your entire chart. Okay? And anybody out there that's doing just stuff that's focusing on your sun sign, I'm sorry, but that's just not really accurate. It's not, because it's not taking into account your entire chart. If you want to know specifically for you, the camera is not focusing on me. Come on, camera. There we go. If you want to focus specifically on something that is just for you, you would need to do a personal reading or, learn astrology and do it yourself. I don't mean that to be in a rude way, because, anybody can do this, okay? I'm here to, empower people, not to scare anybody away. But, yeah. So, anyway, and also, as I say at the beginning of all of my videos, my guidance has been, and likely always will be, astrology is, of course, an energetic template conducive to certain things. The analogy they gave me, of course, is like a formula of math, and of course, variables exist within that formula, and we have the ability to change those variables. All right, so the chart is like the formula, and of course, we can change the variables within because we have free will. And of course, since I do this intuitively, anything that I get intuitively regarding anything for the future prediction, future events, whatever, are always, of course, subject to change due to free will and due to changes and due to any of that. The energetic template is still there. That's still, things are going to still happen likely within that energetic template, but they can, of course, change due to free will choice. Okay? All right. So I guess that's enough to begin the video here. Just have to get all that across first. So looks like a lot this week. So let me just jump right in and pull it up on my end here. And we're going to start on Sunday, November 2nd. So first on my list for this day is we're going to have, where am I here? Venus in exact opposition to Chiron. So let me just kind of tune into this here. Venus in opposition to Chiron. What do you got? There's a desire for justice, or I'm feeling more of like justice. It feels like it's wanting to feel like justice is needed. Like there's something about that. Almost maybe a fight for justice surrounding wounds of what I hear is sovereignty, wounds of basically where Chiron exists in Aries, those Aries themes, but what I feel is more like independent sovereignty, self, those kinds of things, okay? Of course, Chiron is retrograde, so it's going over these old things. With that opposition, it's almost what I get with that is it's like other people, almost in a way standing up, but it's like that seek for balance regarding those wounds in a lot of ways. Like I said, to sovereignty, that kind of thing. All right, that's the vibe that I get with that. One thing I'm being drawn to is this is an opposition. So the opposition in itself is seeking for balance, let alone the fact that Venus is in fact Libra, which, the scales seeking for justice, balance. So there's a balance that needs to occur here. And I feel like maybe what I'm feeling with that now is that there's more people, Venus, people, relationships, other people, and that's in fact with Libra too, that are now seeing and maybe wanting to help more in terms of whatever these wounds are of independent sovereignty, etc., that are helping to achieve this balance that is occurring here. You have to remember with the Libra-Aries axis, this relates to that aspect of balancing self versus the other. Okay, so with that, obviously we have to honor ourselves and our own sovereignty, but we have to honor that within the other as well. I'm kind of being guided to say that just to make sure that, this doesn't get out of balance, because when it's in balance, you have your own sovereign power and you allow that within others as well to do their own thing. Okay, that's where the positivity of that opposition can occur there. Because remember, squares and oppositions don't have to be bad. Okay, sometimes things happen because they're out of balance and they need to come back into balance. Or with a square, you need to do something to fix something or to change something to make it, work again. So you're being maybe pushed into a situation where you see that, so that you take action, the square, to rectify or fix whatever that thing is. Okay, it doesn't have to be bad. You're just being shown something in order for it to get you to deal with it, okay? In an appropriate way, of course. We're also going to have Venus here, in biquintile to Uranus there at 0 degrees of Gemini. So you can see Venus here in that biquintile. Initially, what I feel is there's behind the scenes changes. And it's involving people, or people working behind the scenes. I'm almost hearing to enact some kind of changes. What I get with the retrograde part of it is it's fixing old stuff, but it's understanding what, of course, needs to change and what needs to be fixed. And of course, this is being brought into more of a balanced space, since Venus and Libra bring that into more of a balanced space. But of course, there is an awareness that exists with the people involved, and it's more so, it almost seems like it's in secret. It's happening behind the scenes in secret regarding it. They're not bad changes. It feels like good changes. It's just we're not seeing them. We're not seeing this for what it is, but it's like there's positive change or things being worked on. Positive change behind this. It's not showing up yet, but it is, but we're not seeing it. And it's happening behind the scenes for now, at least. That's what that feels like, for now, at least. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that, because we've got a lot to go over here. We also have, where are we here? Jupiter in sesqui-square to Saturn retrograde. Okay. Not Jupiter, the Sun. Oh my god, I am so tired today. How the hell did I confuse that one? Oh, because I'm looking at two different things. So we're going to have Jupiter. I was looking at two different things at the same time, and my brain is not braining right now. So we're going to have Jupiter in sesqui-square to Juno. That's what I was looking at. And then the Sun will be in sesqui-square to Saturn. I got some wires crossed up there. Okay. So Jupiter is in trine to Saturn, not in a sesqui-square. All right, so Jupiter in sesqui-square to Juno. Again, what I get is this pushing for and doing, there's an underlying, almost nurturing motherly energy that's kind of all right, we got to do this, even though it's going to maybe, piss a lot of people off or be different than what you're normally used to doing. But it has to be done. And I'm getting that's relating to this Juno is obviously partnerships, business partnerships, contracts, etc. So however that's happening, remember, this is mundane astrology, so we're doing this at a higher level, whether this is politically, economically, or maybe even large business, on a large business kind of a level. But it's it's knowing what you have to do, even though it might kind of piss a lot of people off. Regarding what I'm getting is deals, partnerships, that kind of stuff. Okay, surrounding that. But it's something that you gotta do, because it's like the sesqui square is like you can't sweep it under the rug any longer kind of an energy. Even if you're gonna, you gotta do it, even if you're gonna piss people off. I don't know why I keep getting this with this Jupiter and Cancer, this energy, that it's like a nurturing, like motherly energy. It's not bad. It's like she knows. It's almost like to deal with the kids or something, and it's like, this is gonna maybe create a bit of, we're gonna piss some people off in doing this. Like if I tell the neighbor's kid they can't do this, then they might get, the parents might try to, it's something like that, okay? That's kind of what this is, but it's like you have to do it because you can't let that kind of behavior continue or whatever. That's the vibe, what I feel for that. Okay, so before we move into the Sun sesqui square, let's have a look here. Next on the list is Venus will be in semi-sextile to Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith is my favorite. I like the Lilith energy. She's badass. Okay. With this, feels like that Lilith energy, she's working cooperatively with that Venus energy. Because it's like that Lilith energy knows what has to be taken care of. That's kind of where we feel outcasted, where we feel whatever, but in Scorpio, it's trying to transform and deal with that. And there's an intensity and a depth to that, and she's got it, she knows it. That Lilith energy is very strong. She's got it, she knows it, and is working with that Venus energy to re-achieve some kind of balance again, despite where we may have felt maybe outcast or whatever, but it feels like it's happening, but it's not really at the forefront. It's existing there, like you could like see it going on, but it's not necessarily at the forefront. It's the people working beside you, but you've got your own shit to focus on, if that makes any sense. But she's definitely there helping that Venus energy to be like, okay, let's do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do that kind of things to really transform and achieve some kind of a balance in whatever that is. I'm just gonna leave it at that because that's what I'm getting there. Let's jump ahead here to this now. Flip that. Sun sesqui square Saturn. Okay. It's almost like that Saturn doesn't stand a chance. I've said this before. What I've gotten as a general overall vibe, the Saturn in Pisces is like the dissolution of that malefic energy. It's dissolving those negative aspects of restriction that aren't appropriate and softening to more of a space of allowing more positive things to occur. If that's kind of what that feels like to me. The Sun in Scorpio feels like it's pushing more for that transformative aspect towards the dissolution of those things, and being drawn to the fact that Saturn is a retrograde, and so it's dealing with these old things that are kind of being like knocked away. Okay, it's like this retrograde, because we're retrograding back into Pisces, even though Saturn was in Aries, and Saturn will come back into Aries. But it's like finishing this I don't want to say unfinished business, but finalizing the business of what needs to occur with that, with Saturn in Pisces. And this Sun in Scorpio is helping to push for that, because with that sesqui square, it's like you can't ignore it, and you have to really push on take care of it. And of course, that transformative aspect of Scorpio, and of course, the ruler of Scorpio, Pluto, is in Aquarius now direct, really pushing for, change, that transformation and change as well. This is very fixed energy with this Scorpio and Aquarius vibe towards transformation and change. So it's like it's not really going to budge in that sense. And of course, with that Pisces energy, that dissolving, that mutable energy, that old negative aspect of that Saturn energy is what I feel is what's going away, and that doesn't stand a chance anymore, is what I feel with that. Okay? We're also going to have Venus here as well in square to Jupiter. It's like that feminine energy that I talked about that's kind of doing what she's got to do even though other people don't like it. I feel an aspect of support. It's really what that just feels like to me, of the support of other people. Yeah, it's like supporting like the fighting the good fight, right? It's like when you've got people to help back you up. You're on the good side, you got people to help back you up. Even though other people may not like it, it's like you know that you're in the right and this has to get kind of taken care of. Okay, so that's what I get from that. Venus will also be in semi-square to Juno, so what I get with that is that positivity is going against the negative aspects of whatever these partnerships are. Kind of get the inkling that's, well, this is mundane astrology, so of course it's more globally. Whether that's global, political partnerships, economic, business, whatever. But that's kind of what I get with that. Is yeah, it's more of a backing up this Jupiter energy against maybe some negative aspects of these partnerships and standing up in a way for, I almost want to say for more balance and justice in this. How this will you give me any specifics? The word I got is economic. Anything else? I just got the word no. So however that plays out is however that's going to play out, okay? I can only tell you what I get. And sometimes I think the idea is I can give you this forecast, but we also need to experience it, okay? It's about, we need to go through it to experience it, to see for ourselves, okay? I can't just sit here and tell you everything's going to happen and then you just, sit and just whatever. It's this physical life is about also having an experience. So you can get guidance to be aware of certain things, but at the same time, you also need to be in it to fully experience what that is going to mean for you so that you can learn and understand things on your own and experience that aspect of growth that is meant to occur and not just be straight up told certain things. Okay. I got the semi-square in there. Last thing today is Mars here in this quintile to the south node. What I feel like is that's taking action to just dump the shit that's no longer working for us. That of course, with that biquintile, what I feel is that's happening in behind the scenes. It's not being hidden or anything, but it's just, it feels like maybe something that's just occurring, that's happening, taking action to transform and change. And of course, it's dumping those old practical things that aren't working anymore. And it feels like very like blunt, literal, and just not doing this, we're going forward. But it's not necessarily, because there's no like north node aspect here, so it just, what it feels like is it's just dumping the shit, basically, is what that feels like. It's just dumping the shit. And yeah. Okay, so that's Sunday. Let's move on to Monday the 3rd here. Just a couple things today. We're going to have this Venus now in quincunx to Saturn retrograde. What I feel like is that frustration with the quincunx is with that old world negative aspect of Saturn that is trying to trying to be pushed away, or trying to be taken care of in dissolving that old thing. Let's put it that way. Where there's this aspect, what I feel like is this Venus is stronger in terms of this aspect of the support of other people, justice, etc. And that Saturn is annoyed, or that old energy is annoyed that it's being forced out. But it doesn't have a choice. Okay, it needs to be forced out because that's not for us. It was never serving us, and it needs to go. Okay, and there's the integration of this, and it may be what I'm getting to is it may be difficult for people to understand this, which is also leading to that integration that needs to occur with this quincunx and the difficulty therein. But yeah, there's definitely a dissolving and a change of those structures. But it's ultimately for our highest good, and we just may not see it as such. And that could be either what needs to be integrated. Well, what could be frustrating, but what needs to be integrated here is understanding that I'm hearing that what you see is not necessarily what you get, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in what's really happening behind the scenes is more positive than what we're actually being told or being shown or what we're seeing. Okay. Also, we're going to have Mars here on its last leg of Scorpio, 29 degrees. In trine to a Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. I feel more of a softening with that Neptune again. Taking action to transform in a more positive way, in a more compassionate way, in a more loving way, in a more appropriate way, I guess you could say. With that retrograde is it's getting rid of those old things and learning to do it in a new way and taking action to transform maybe in that new way, and it's getting rid of that old in terms of doing it in a new way. It's sometimes weird to actually say what it is that I'm getting, because it's like it's hard to articulate, because you get it as like all the information and then you have to try to put it into words. Sometimes you get a word, but like it's just, yeah. I like it. I like, you get all the information. It's just, it's hard to, language is very limited, is what I'm trying to say. In terms of trying to explain it in that way. Okay, but yeah, that's all for that. Let's move on to Tuesday, November 4th here. Okay, so this is when we're going to have Mars now coming into Sagittarius. As you can see here, Mars 0 degrees Sagittarius. Initially, what I get is action more on a global scale. Action on a global scale. In terms of like dealing with things globally, like it feels like it's kind of maybe shaking some things up, really, in a lot of ways. Stirring things up, shaking things up, but it's really what it boils down to is just truly action on a global scale. It doesn't necessarily feel bad, but okay. I was getting, because it feels a bit chaotic, it's opposition Uranus, okay? So that's what I feel. It's action on a global scale, but it feels a bit chaotic and like, I almost want to say unconventional, but it's just like I said before, it's like it's shaking things up, but it's not bad. It's good, because that Uranus, like I said, with that Uranian energy, a Uranus retrograde, the first part in Gemini, is aware of what needs to actually change. So that awareness could be being brought through now with those action steps in terms of whatever they are. Okay, so yeah. But that chaoticness is definitely there. All right. So also on this day, we're going to have this Mars in biquintile to Chiron. I just want to see. So that is after it moves into Sagittarius. Okay, cool. So what I feel like is its change regarding that wounded space to no longer be wounded anymore. It's bringing back that aspect of like sovereignty, self, etc. But that's being driven in a behind the scenes way. So there could be a lot of whatever that Mars opposition Uranus there, that aspect of chaotic action or change. Action, what's leading to change really, but it's that action and chaoticness is being driven behind the scenes by basically the desire to heal this wound and to it feels like to take care of it so that it doesn't happen again, or it's just basically it's like healing it and taking care of it. It's understanding what that is and then taking care of it. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Okay, so let's move on to Wednesday the 5th now, and of course this is when we're going to have, and it's the only thing on this day that I see, this full moon. There we go. This full, I'm like, why isn't it showing the moon? This full moon in Taurus. Okay. I feel the stubbornness of Taurus with this. But there's also an intensity and stubbornness to Scorpio as well. Oddly enough, what I feel is this Taurus energy, initially it felt like giving in to that Scorpio energy, but it's actually working with it. So what I get the word is balance, and I feel like it relates to this opposition that is here of this Scorpio Taurus, okay? And it's about balancing the two out. What I kind of get with that is it's like taming the bull, because the bull is respecting and honoring that state of balance that is occurring between these two signs. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? Okay, so I'm getting an aspect of release that helps with that balance. Full moons are about release, but there's an aspect of release that helps. Okay, so we're maybe, okay, it's surrounding, kind of taming that aspect of Taurus that is so incredibly stubborn and maybe in old ways, and it's achieving that state of balance towards transformation. So it's understanding, it's releasing maybe that some of that negative parts of that bullheaded stubbornness in order to achieve an aspect of appropriate transformation to occur. It's understand that Taurus energy and the Scorpio is understanding that this balance needs to occur. It's almost like that Taurus energy has been too extreme and is now coming into more of a state of balance. It almost feels like what I get with this is like political leaders that have been either too extreme or too extreme, too stubborn. I get this more on a more global scale, not anyone specifically in particular. I think this is happening on like in a lot of countries, a lot of places. Like it's not just one specific thing, and I don't think we're going to see it as that, and we may not even see it directly on this day. Okay, but what this is initiating is an aspect of just that needs to be more balanced. This is like, yeah, it feels like It's almost like that sun in Scorpio has more power. And it's releasing a lot of the negative aspects of Taurus. It's, like I said, it's taming the bull. It's taming the bull. I don't know how else to say this. Is there anything specifically that you can say? Economic, again, economic. I've just asked in my mind, is there any more to that again? And they just get the answer no. So whatever, like I said, I'm only going to get a certain amount of information about this because we need to go through it to experience it, to see it for what it is. And like I said, a lot of this stuff, intuitive, because I'm getting this through this intuitively, this is what I'm getting as I record this video, and it's always subject to change. So just be mindful of that. But yeah, what I get is taming the bull. Okay, and it's achieving the actual normal state of balance that's supposed to occur between these two energies. Is what I'm getting. Taurus is it's been a bit too out of hand, and it's now achieving the state of balance because something needs to be transformed and changed. The Scorpio energy is more powerful because, believe it or not, it's almost like the aspect of the good or the light is here in Scorpio. Okay, and is now trying to tame this negative aspect of Taurus, and there's this aspect of like it's taming the bull because there's an aspect of balance that needs to be achieved here in whatever way. So it's releasing a lot of these negative aspects surrounding these Taurian themes, whatever, on a global scale. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that because that was a bit of an explanation. Okay, let's move on to Thursday the 6th. And of course, here we're going to have Venus now coming into Scorpio. This doesn't happen until later in the day, so it's still showing the chart here at 29 degrees of Libra. However, Venus will make her ingress into Scorpio today, later into the evening. Looks, yeah, well, kind of the 4:40 p.m. Central, but okay, so Venus in Scorpio. I almost feel like an intensity, like a Black Moon Lilith kind of an energy with that. Scorpio is an energy that you can't really fuck with because Scorpio can kind of like see right through you. It just feels like a very intense feminine energy that is very strong and very willing to push. It's almost like what I feel like is pushing for change, pushing for that transformation that really needs to occur. It just, I may be getting a vibe of that Venus in terms of Venus is the sign of Taurus because Venus rules Taurus, and part of that needs to be transformed and changed. But I also get, like I said, a very strong energy regarding just transformation. I'm not getting any more with that, and obviously for a reason, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay? Also on this day, we're going to have Mars here in sextile to Pluto. I get like the feeling of like an argument, to be honest. But it's from something or someone or political figures that need to go down, that aren't for the best interest of humanity or globally or whatever, and they're fighting. It's almost like it's a resistance towards this change that is occurring, but they don't stand a chance. Okay? Because there's action being taken on a more global level. and it seems like it's pushing for this transformation and change. This feels positive, but it's pushing against that which doesn't want that positivity, or that is, it's like, the people that want it for themselves and aren't looking onto a more humanitarian scale, they're the ones that are angry about this. And it may be framed in a way that seems like you should support them instead. And they'll be like standing up or whatever, but really they're the assholes that need to be taken down. And this may not come up, this may not come through, this may not be shown in that way. We may not see it in that way. Because what the words that I was getting is because we're being lied to. Okay, there's nothing else with that. Okay, let me go. We're also on this day going to have this Venus here in quincunx to Neptune. I feel a frustration. When does that occur? I feel a frustration with, okay, because it's not, because of the desire for this Neptune over here in Pisces for that more compassionate view of things. There's a frustration because Venus is still in Libra when this happens. There's a frustration surrounding that it's of the current unjustness or the lack of balance that is here when it should be in a more compassionate state. That's where that frustration lies. And that's what's being felt through that. Okay. We're also going to have the Sun in sesquisquare to Neptune. It's pushing for transformation in what I just talked about. And that it needs to become in a more balanced space, to become softer, to become more compassionate, to become almost more in a state of peace, that kind of a thing, instead of in the out of balance state that I almost want to say that we're used to, or that it's kind of always been in. It needs to move, it needs to shift. I actually feel there's a positivity with this Sun in Scorpio, with this sesquisquare to this Neptune, to push for this more compassionate, more almost like a softening to love kind of a thing. Okay, there's what I feel like is an underlying, you consider it the light energy, using this Sun in Scorpio with this sesquisquare to Neptune to really push for this positive, this positivity, this compassion, that kind of a thing to really occur, to transform. It's using the Scorpio energy in a positive way to transform in a positive space. Okay, so, and I'm going to say this because I'm going to feel to say this. Those who think that Scorpio is negative, it's not. Those who think that Scorpio is bad, it's not. Those that think that Scorpio is toxic, it's not. Scorpio is the energy of transformation. Scorpio is facing what needs to be faced and transform it. Can it be used in a bad way? Yeah. But it can also be extremely powerful used in a good way too. This energy is how you use it. Scorpio is not bad. Scorpio is extremely powerful energy and is an extremely powerful feminine energy. Okay? It's and I've said this before, people don't like Scorpio because they don't want to look at the skeletons in their own closet. They don't want to face what they have to face in order to transform, to become better, to become more healed, to become in that better space, because they just want to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist and think that that's what is going to make them happy. They're just pretending to be happy. They're just pretending in that because that's not actual true happiness, because they're not willing to go through that transformative process, which ultimately, even though it may not feel very good going through it, when you reach the other side, you're going to be much better off than had you just ignored it. 100%. You can't have fear with Scorpio. Scorpio is going to show you the fear, is going to show you all the stuff that you have to face in order to transform to get to the better place. But Scorpio will support you through that. If you're willing to do it, Scorpio will back you up that entire time to help you through it. Because that's what it does. Okay? And it's very powerful energy. All right? And that's what we're dealing with here from a very positive space with this aspect. We're also going to have Pluto here in sesqui-square to the South Node in Virgo. What I get again is ditching the shit. Literally ditching the shit. To make progress, to make change, to make that transformation that is needing to occur. What I feel is old world practical stuff that needs to just get tossed in the bin. Tossed in the rubbish bin, just goodbye. You're emptying the trash kind of a thing. That's really what it feels like. It feels intense, but in a very positive way to transform and move forward and just, like I said, just dump the shit. Okay, we also have Pluto in semi-square to the North Node here in Pisces. I feel like the sesqui-square is almost a stronger aspect, but what it is because this feels known. What I get with this semi-square to the North Node is this feels known. This is a goal that is there, that is not stopping. It is known because we're going in this new direction no matter what. This sesqui-square is stronger because of the amount that we need to actually get rid of in order to go here. This movement forward is not changing, okay? Because we are moving forward no matter what. We are transforming and making progress and change no matter what. This feels like it's just set in stone there, sitting there, and this is where we got to dump the shit because we know that this is happening. Okay. We also have Venus here, and it'll be in quincunx to Uranus. When does that happen? So this is after Venus comes into Scorpio. Is that correct? Just looking at times here. Yes. So I'm just trying to articulate here. It feels the Venus energy, she's not giving up, but there's an aspect of defeat. But there's this glimmer with that Uranus retrograde in Gemini surrounding this knowingness or this visibility of what needs to change. There's a situation that may be frustrating, and there may be an aspect of defeat, but there's an understanding that negative part of it is not going to win because it's still going to occur. The change is still going to occur. It's going to move despite how that frustration or how it feels within that. That's all I'm going to say about that. We're also going to have Jupiter in trine to Black Moon Lilith here in Scorpio. What I get is a very strong Lilith energy, kind of like smiling in almost like kind of a wicked way that's like, oh, we gotta change. And she's like, it's like, the shit's gonna hit the fan when that kind of happens. It doesn't, like, it can feel kind of nefarious, but it's not really nefarious. It's in a good way. It's just, she knows what she's doing, and she knows that it's going to maybe like wreak havoc, but not necessarily. It's not intended for negative purposes. It's intended for a more positive outcome. But it's like the craziness maybe still needs to happen. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm just gonna leave it there. Let's move on to Friday the 7th here. This is when we're going to have Uranus coming back into Taurus. What I feel with this, as it has related to that full moon and the release of that old stubbornness, is now, it's almost like there's a new stubbornness in town through that balance, that you have no choice now but to change. In a very new and in a very positive way. Anything else with this? Feels like I want to say economically. I have no idea how. Can you give an inkling of... I'm getting the word no again. We have to experience it as we go through it, for whatever it's going to be. I don't know what the hell it's going to be. I can only tell you what I feel with this energy. Anything else with this? There could be a lot of bullheaded stubbornness that's standing up for what this change is and moving forward. And it's not going to back down. It's not going to back down. And it's really going to push. It's really going to push people, and it's really going to push. It's really going to push. But again, I feel an underlying positive energy to this, despite what we may be shown, or maybe seeing. There's an underlying positive energy to whatever is occurring, and whatever push that is out there towards an aspect of change, whatever that is. I'm just going to leave it at that. Also, on this day, we have Venus in sesqui-square to the north node and semi-square to the south node. What I get is this aspect of almost like bringing people together. I feel an intensity with this, almost to transform, to move in a new direction. And there's a less of an energy on the old now, on the south node, on the old now. There's a less of an energy here. It's like, it's almost like it's being ignored, or like pushed away, like ignored. And there's a strong push now for movement forward. And in transforming and changing whatever it takes for that movement forward. Because it feels like I said, and I've said before with the North Node in Pisces, this is like unknown. This is like uncharted territory in terms of where we're moving. But it's actually quite positive. It's just, we fear this idea of fearing what you don't understand, but you got no choice but to do it, because there's actually no reason to fear it. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's bad or scary. And in fact, this actually feels a lot more positive than where we've been. So I'm just going to leave that at that. We're also going to have Venus as well with this biquintile to Saturn. I almost feel like a defeated Saturn with that. I feel like this Venus, especially with that aspect of the nodes and moving forward, is very strong. And whatever, it almost feels like whatever hidden energy or behind the scenes energy that used to have that control structure or restriction it's almost like it's very strongly weakened, or it's weakening, and it it's like it doesn't stand a chance, or it has no power anymore. But that's what the aspect of that exists, that is hidden or behind the scenes. It has no power anymore, or its power is very greatly reduced to the point where there's nothing left. It's almost like there's nothing left. We also going to have Venus in square to the Pluto, and I feel like that's driving a lot of this too, of what I've already said. What I get with that is a really strong push for transformation and change. And I get there's an aspect of people here now with this Venus, in terms of really strongly pushing for that transformation and change. But this feels in a very positive way, whoever's working through it, and that this Pluto energy is really pushing for that transformation and movement forward. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. So let's move on to Saturday the 8th here. Basically just the sun making aspects to the nodes. So we're going to have the sun trine the north node and sextile the south node. Ultimately, what I get with this is this idea of transformation and moving forward in a new direction. It's solidly surrounding that sun with that Scorpio energy. And it's like aspecting the nodes is almost like a yeah, we know. It's like the sun in Scorpio is like already being used to transform and move in a new direction, and making aspects to the nodes is almost moot at this point, because it's like, yeah, we know. And it's like we're already there and doing it, in moving in that new direction, or at least how that energy is being used is already in that space of pushing forward. So it's almost like the aspects to the nodes are like moot in that sense. They're not. It's like it doesn't even need to be there, because it's already happening in whatever way. Okay, so that's the end of the week. I'll bring it back to myself here. Let me just see what would be like the overall energy of this week. So I'm getting the idea of the asshole trying to defend himself or trying to recruit people to be on his side again. But he's not going to win. And I feel like it initially feels like a behind the scenes push, but we're seeing it maybe as a more stronger push, really towards transformation and change. In a very positive way, regardless of whether we're seeing it that way or not. What I feel is the underlying purpose for it, or the what is happening underlying, is actually quite positive, even if we're manipulated into believing or seeing that it is not. Okay, just kind of in my mind asked, do I say any more to that? The answer is no, so I'm just going to call it there. If you've made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments so I know you're a real one. And that's it for this week. I hope to see you all in next week's video. Take care, everyone. Bye.